Man, Marlene. It feels like it's been 100 years since I last celebrated Christmas. I need to find some way to celebrate it again this year with nostalgia and joy. And I think I have the perfect way to do that.
How do we do that?
By replaying old Zelda games, of course, reliving those childhood memories and finding some new ones.
Really? I mean, seeing as how the newest one was terrible, I don't think that series really deserves any form of Christmas celebration.
You should be a comedian. No, seriously, stick to your day job, please. You're not funny. That joke was really stupid.
Breath of the Wild was a stale game. You would know if you played it. But you didn't. I mean, nothing happened except for some walking. It was a grass-cutting simulator without a lawnmower to make things interesting, and just when things start looking cool, all challenges ripped away because you actually played through the story properly.
Hey, shut up.
Pretty bad
Shut
because
up.
nothing of a health off, which makes no sense since you as a player are properly
Hey, yeah,
equipped by the
shut
point
up.
to be
Shut up.
the
No one
main
cares.
event.
Shut up. Shut up. Oh my god, it's Breath of the Wild. I was having so much trouble finding this on the market. I can't believe that I just happened to dig it up.
That sure is convenient.
It's a Christmas miracle!
Let's not take it too far.
I cannot wait to play this game. I think I'm gonna play it till the end of... Where am I?
Your room. I rescued you and brought you back here.
Oh, Marlene, I never knew you cared about me. Oh my gosh.
I don't. I really don't. But you were my only mode of transportation back here, so I had to bring you back here.
That doesn't make any sense.
Don't think about it.
Time to play Breath of the Wild. I can't wait to hook it up and relive some memories and forge some new ones. It's so exciting. Here we go. The Legend of Zelda is a series for me that is wrapped up in the most pure and unbridled form of nostalgia. With Ocarina of Time being the first game I ever played and Wind Waker being my personal favorite gaming title of all time, it's safe to say that I'm an avid Zelda fan. For better or worse, I love the series with all my heart. I can vividly remember back before even Skyward Sword released that I had a chat with a few friends one day about my ideal Zelda game. One that had the charm and feel of Ocarina of Time, the story of Majora's Mask, and the look of something a tad more mature than the Wind Waker. But most importantly, it would have the open world game made of the stuff of legends. The game was thought in my head as some dream game that in all honesty was likely to never happen. Soon after Skyward Sword's release in 2011 and my subsequent disappointment with the title, I looked onto the future of the franchise and hoped that something great was waiting for me on the horizon. Soon, with the small tidbits of news that Nintendo released, I started growing ever more optimistic about the upcoming Zelda title. A game rumored to have an open world akin to Skyrim while challenging the conventions of the Legend of Zelda series, and it was all I needed to hear to be instantly hyped up for the game as much as possible. And while my hype grew, there's also a piece of my brain that worried this step would be one too large for Nintendo to handle, and that they'd fumble their first Zelda open world attempt. But soon after a few delays at E3 2016, my optimistic thoughts were reassured by the first ever trailer released for the upcoming Zelda game, titled Breath of the Wild. Looking even more stellar than I could ever have imagined, I was ready for Breath of the Wild's release, and when it eventually did release in spring of 2017, I was one of the first people to pick it up, and when I started playing it, I did not stop for quite some time. But with the game's harsh changes to the long-held successful conventions of the Legend of Zelda series, and with the game being Nintendo's first take on an open-world experience, was the game worth the hype it received? Or was it just another passable game receiving undue hype from its fans and critics alike? Well, on today's episode of Roy Reviews, we'll find out. The story of Breath of the Wild opens with Link sitting in a strange chamber. He awakens to find a distant voice calling out for him, and after exiting the chamber and viewing the majesty of the world he is in, Link then speaks to an old man who gives him some info on the state of the world known as Hyrule. After following the mysterious voice to an odd tower, it is revealed that the voice is Princess Zelda, and that she and Link fought in an apocalyptic event 100 years ago, wherein Link nearly died and was brought back to the Chamber of Resurrection to rest and recover for 100 years. It is also revealed that Zelda alone is holding the evil that caused the first apocalyptic event back from completing its goal. After the old man on the plateau gives Link a paraglider and reveals himself to be the spirit of the King of Hyrule, Link then visits Kakariko Village, where he learns that he must defeat the 4 divine beasts, reclaim his lost memories from 100 years ago, find the legendary Master Sword, and make his way to the castle to try and defeat Ganon and save Zelda. Then the player's true journey begins, as you can then go wherever your quest takes you, and you can choose to go right to Ganon's lair, try to take him on barehanded, or you can start hunting down divine beasts, or just go on your own adventure throughout the world and explore. The story of Breath of the Wild keeps things vague and mysterious for a good portion of the game, and that's good as it gives players a real incentive to explore the game's story, and to find Link's lost memories as they fill in the holes that reside within the plot. The actual plot of the game is one that is geniusly constructed as it fixes certain problems that many open world games have, where an apocalyptic event is going to happen if the hero fails to become powerful enough in time to stop it. But in reality, the game is open world, so you can go do whatever you want for months on end and nothing will happen to the story because it's waiting for you. So the feeling of impending threat is just ruined completely. But in Breath of the Wild, the apocalyptic event already happened and Link already failed to stop it. But now the player takes control when the world is already in ruins and there's not really a rush in the world to keep things from ending because they already have. So this lets the player play at their own pace without feeling rushed at all. As for the negative side of this open type of story, there are a few cons to discuss, mainly that of the side characters like the champions and the champions' descendants who really suffer from a lack of character development. While Mipha and Sidon are extremely memorable, they are an exception, as the rest of the cast turns out to rely solely on face value characteristics and small bits of screen time that they have to leave any impression, which gives potential heartwarming or tragic scenes a rather neutral tone. The story works great for the game, but I still feel they could have elaborated not only with the characters, but also with the story of the original Hylian kingdom before the apocalypse. Very little is actually shown of a pre-apocalyptic Hyrule, and makes caring for the original end-world event far from easy. But what gives Breath of the Wild one of the greatest strengths are the NPCs that fill the world, and the charm and feel that go along with them. Some apply story beats and fun anecdotes about how they heard about pre-apocalyptic Hyrule's champions and how one of them was a guy who looked kinda like you and had a slate kinda like yours. But it can't be you, because it was 100 years ago. The NPCs just give off that very charming vibe that really retains that Legend of Zelda aura of the NPCs that was first established in Ocarina of Time, and the story overall works just fine, and I quite enjoyed it, but I did feel that there was a potential masterpiece of storytelling here that may have been sacrificed for the story to match the gameplay. But overall, that makes the game meld together a lot better. If it had a very epic story that had a very weird pacing with open world gameplay, things would have felt a lot weirder than what we got. Breath of the Wild is a game that gets rid of the traditional linear layout of most Zelda games and instead opts to go for a large sandbox world filled with things to find, actions to take, and evil to conquer. With the game being titled Breath of the Wild, it's evident that even just from the name alone, this game is one that puts heavy emphasis on its world, and I love it. Going from place to place, exploring a whole new world like a child exploring their backyard for the first time, Breath of the Wild nails an atmosphere of adventure like no other game I've seen. While there are plenty of open fields where you can reflect and think and relax, there's still somehow a new thing just beyond every corner. Anytime you seek out adventure in this game, you will find it, and traversing Hyrule has never been better. While the dear old days of rolling are behind us, Nintendo hasn't left us high and dry just yet, as you can either run, ride a horse, glide, teleport, or even surf on your shield throughout Hyrule. And yes, you heard me correctly, I said surf on your shield. It's personally my favorite way to traverse down hills, and combining different aspects of the game can get you fun original moves like surfing down a steep hill on a shield and jumping off a ledge onto a hill and gliding down onto a horse, which has happened many times to me before, all in the game. It allows for so many fun features which grant the player each their own inimitable story. Another masterfully executed part of this game are the amazing ways you can take advantage of the physics engine, whether it's using kinetic energy halting a rune to launch a boulder with yourself attached to it, building a makeshift catapult, or flinging enemies nearby with stones. The runes in this game allow you to accomplish nearly anything you can put your mind to and allow for some of the single greatest moments in gaming history. One annoyance I had for the first half of this game was just how easily Link would become winded. After running maybe a few feet, he'll just get on the ground and start praying for mercy out of the fear for his impending heart vessel burst. Luckily, you can combat this by finding other ways to traverse the world, but I wish his run cycle would last a lot longer, and even when your stamina bar is fully up, it just isn't long enough, and he gets winded still so easily. One huge fantastic element of Breath of the Wild is, well, the elements. They serve as a reminder that while you are the hero of the wild, nature still has no master. Whether a lightning storm causes you to face the threat of death all too soon, or icy chills and heat strokes cause Link to go into early retirement, the elements highly overpower you in every way, and you remain at their mercy at all times. And while it may sound unfair, there are plenty of ways to combat each piece of weather that the player can take upon themselves to survive their trek. Except for rain. If you're about to do a climbing expedition, you see one drop of liquid, it's time for you to make a fire as soon as possible, and skip ahead in the day to avoid the rain. But if you're in the middle of scaling a huge mountainous wall and you see a drop of rain, then God have mercy on your soul, man. I don't know what to say. I never thought I'd look at rain, my favorite thing, and think, my God, if that isn't the unholiest satanic spawn I've ever seen in my damn life. I mean, honestly, the rain in this game is ridiculous. It'll be completely sunny, and then out of nowhere, boop, one bit of rain, and you're screwed. Man, it is so sunny and I really want to climb over there. It'd be a terrible day for rain, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen, so let's just start climbing over there and... Cooking is another huge part of this game, and it's a part that I took a huge interest in. Combining various ingredients from your days of hunting and gathering is one of the most satisfying things to do in this game, and while at first I thought I would be avoiding it at all costs, it fast became one of the most satisfying things to do in the game for me. I mean, it's just so much fun to experiment with the different bits of food to see what the outcome will be. And get this, if you cook something and it looks fantastic, you'll get a nice piece of art. But if you cook something and the outcome is bad, you get a censored bar on the food because it just looks so terrible. Anyway, I should probably move on from cooking because I could ramble about this for days. I mean, I've just been, planning to launch my new Food Network show, so it's just hard for me to keep track. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Master Chef. Today we are going to be cooking up some good grub from my favorite game, Breath of the Wild. Now, to do this dish, you're going to need the ingredients that I have laid before me. You're going to need half a tomato, a whole pepper, good old head of lettuce, and one good old chocolate chip cookie, monster extract. So first you're going to want to cut a little bit of lettuce, cut from each side. Get some of the root, because that's always the tastiest part of the lettuce. You're gonna take your lettuce and just discard it however you want. You just want to cut the top off. You can see that it looks nice and edible. We're gonna use that part, not this stupid part that no one cares about. Take your tomato and just give it a little nice slice, Get one of those nice tomato slices. What we're gonna do, like carve out the center and put that in? What are we, barbarians? Okay. Put it all in the nice juices of the fruit, not vegetables. Give it a nice little cross section, and then just crumple it up as much as possible. Ooh, look at that. Stick it in there, and then you're gonna want to start giving it a nice sear on the oven, you know, get it cooking, and just give it 6 to 7 seconds. And ladies and gentlemen, just like that, oh, it looks just splendid. Look at that, where you get that nice shot, Terry. Give that a nice shot. And it just looks, as you can see, it just looks excellent. And it's not going to be censored at all, because if I pass my hand through, it's not going to be pixelated at all. It just looks magnificent. My favorite version of Ratatouille. You're going to want to grab your latest utility for food consumption, also known as a fork. And you don't even need a plate. You don't even need a plate. You're just going to stick it all in that bad boy. Get every little piece of goodness, and we are on our way. It tastes good. Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, I gotta use monster extract. I gotta make it taste better. You didn't tell me this was vanilla extract. Temperature is another huge factor to consider heavily when surviving out in the harsh wild. If you're gonna go somewhere humid, you'll need to wear lighter clothes so as to not get a heat stroke, and if you're going somewhere cold, you'll need to layer up. I love that the game has these fantastic animations for Link's reactions. In cold weather, like when he's all bundled up, he's fine, he's happy, he's chilling, you know, it's cool. And when he's a tiny bit cold, he's fine, but he's just a little shivery. And then when he's out in normal clothes, he starts getting irritated a little bit, getting annoyed, getting a little scared. And then when he wears humid clothes, he just starts shivering and just almost dies. It's hilarious. The combat of Breath of the Wild is what the Zelda series has been building up to since the conception of Z-targeting. You can move so freely and approach situations however you want to, but you have the option of Z-targeting enemies to get a better view and lock onto them at will. And with the way combat is shaped in this game, it all just comes together to form one excellent form of combat that is just complex yet simple enough to create one of gaming's greatest combat systems. The difficulty of combat is also something that has been heavily modified from the previous Zelda iterations. While combat was usually easy in the other Zelda titles, this game said, nah, screw that, and plugged in the latest album of Dark Souls and started remixing it with Shadow of the Colossus' newest tracks. I kid you not, for the first half of the game, Breath of the Wild messes you up. I mean, like, seriously messes you up. You will mess up, you will fall down, you will die, you will mess up, you will drown, you will die, you will mess up, you'll get shot, you will die, you'll mess up, you'll get blown up by your own explosive and die. You get my point. The game is hard to survive in, let alone have skirmishes in. Approaching new enemies almost always results in a death at your first time around, and the game will not mess around with ramping up enemies' difficulty as you progress along. I can remember when I first got off the plateau, I walked over to an area that housed a big ol' centaur thing, and I figured it was an NPC, so I walked up to it. But nope. I said, hi doggy, and got chokeslammed to the ground. That's when I realized Breath of the Wild will not mess around at all with you, especially in the first half. The game's biggest fault for me, though, is its lack of enemy variety. There are only a handful of enemies in the game, and I feel like this was something that could have easily been fixed, but I guess not, and sadly we're stuck fighting bokoblins forever. In the overworld of the game, you'll find yourself going up against many bosses, and they are honestly a lot of fun to fight. I wish that they would go up in difficulty, though, as the player progresses like other enemies, just to keep the fight going later in the game. Because fighting up against Septaluses and Hinoxes the first few times around were honestly some of the most thrilling moments in my gameplay. I would be remiss to forget to mention the various mini-dungeons spread throughout the Hylian world. Shrines are one of the greatest things in Breath of the Wild. Each has a very fun and unique challenge that almost never fails to be a fun experience. Some are easy, others are excellent puzzles, each more fun than the last, except for like 4 BS ones. Then there are also combat-focused shrines, which I enjoyed the first few times around, but then after a while it just became a tedious, mundane thing to do. The 4 dungeons of the game, also known as Divine Beasts, are really fun. You're able to use your Sheikah Slate to control pieces of the Divine Beast and use that to solve most of the puzzles. It's a great new way to experience dungeons, and while they were quite short, they were still very fun to play. The bosses were also quite fun, but I feel like there's a huge lack of competent design here. Each looks the same and they don't look great or too memorable at all, which let me down a bit. The weapons in this game are also breakable, and while it's been divisive among fans whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I personally enjoy it as it makes the game more enjoyable for me, but weapons do tend to break a tad faster than I would appreciate. Breath of the Wild's look is something akin to a Miyazaki film or a watercolor painting come to life, with washed out colors and a vibrant color palette. The game's look is one that is, from my rough estimation, and always will be, pleasing to the eye. I love that it retains the Wind Waker type of charm and cartoon effects, but still has a more mature look to it than Wind Waker and balances out the two ends of cartoony and mature fantasy excellently. And while I know this might be a strange thing to praise, I feel like I need to give props to the game's icons, since they all look excellent, and especially when they're out in the overworld, they're just so identifiable and distinct from one another that it's easy to distinguish which one is which. The world of Breath of the Wild is also one thing that just, oh my god, it looks like one of the most stellar examples of a luscious and chillingly beautiful game world, and especially from distant views from cliff edges or even down on the ground looking at the field around you, the game just retains a beauty that makes it one of the prettiest game worlds ever made. You ever look at a sunset while playing Breath of the Wild, you'll know right away that this just looks gorgeous and fantastic, and sometimes I'll play the game and just get caught up looking at the scenery rather than even playing the game. The grass looks beautiful, the trees look beautiful, the skyline looks beautiful, the distant terrain looks fantastic. It all comes together in an amazing way where every single cog in the machine is doing its thing and none of them are failing at their jobs. So this atmosphere of the game is never broken. It's just fantastic and gives the game a sense of realism that can only be hoped to achieve by any other game released. The cutscenes in Breath of the Wild all look fantastic as well, and while there are only a few and a handful, they all look amazing, and I love that they use this canvas little art style to transfer between different timelines and periods and to get you into the actual story of the cinematic first, and it's like a nice little hand-drawn hieroglyphics of the characters and all these different things going on, and then it transfers into the actual cutscene. It looks fantastic and is very creatively done. They could have gone that more mature fantasy route that they released the trailer for back in 2011 for the Wii U, or they could have gone this route, and I'm personally happy that with such an open and huge world that they went with this route, as it allowed for more technical advances with how large the world was and how dense it was with content, but also allowed the game to look almost like a watercolor painting that you can just explore, and I feel like the aesthetic goes just hand in hand perfectly with the gameplay. The frame rate in the game is something that must be brought up, as when playing in heavily dense forested areas, the game will hiccup. This was an issue before patches were released and caused the gameplay to be nearly unplayable, but luckily now with patches in place, this only causes the game to hiccup ever so slightly, and never seriously deters any gameplay. Breath of the Wild soundtrack fits the game's open-ended world with open-ended music, and while the music has a sound and aura fitting to the game's journey, it becomes a double-edged sword, as this leaves some parts of the game with music that simply doesn't feel quite adventurous enough for the moment, or no music at all for the moment. Sometimes you'll be riding through Hyrule Field and the sun will just rise at the perfect spot, placing a beautiful view before you, and a lens flare will top off the look, and all you hear is some subtle piano flourishes to complete the moment, and it just leaves you feeling empty and sometimes lonely. To add insult to injury, Breath of the Wild lacks any real iconic classic tunes, those ones that make you want to just listen to them in the game and cause you to have the melody stuck in your head for weeks on end, with the exception of maybe one or two tracks in the main theme. Though that's not to say Breath of the Wild has bad music, it's filled with fantastic pieces that accompany you through towns, castles, and stables, but the game has areas like Hyrule Field or cool moments where they could have used some iconic music or just little pieces of their own to make the area or certain in-game moments feel more epic. But what Breath of the Wild lacks in iconic music, it makes up for in its atmosphere. Never before have I felt so sucked into a game's world just from its sound design. The music helps a lot with this as well, and though those piano flourishes aren't as extravagant as smashing musical pieces, they do fit quite nicely with the watercolor art style of the game and its earthy nature. The endgame of Breath of the Wild starts with having you go through what feels like an honorary 5th dungeon in the game, as you must traverse to, on, and through Hyrule Castle to get to the end of the game. And the act of storming the castle is one of the best moments in the entire game. Exploring Hyrule Castle and fighting off the strong enemies which reside within it is quite a fun challenge, and uncovering all of its secrets is something that I found extremely satisfying. Once you get to the final floor of the castle, you either end up fighting 4 versions of Ganon before getting the actual version of the beast if you didn't beat the Divine Beasts, or just going to Ganon right away if you have beaten the Divine Beast, which is something I found a little strange and I feel should have been swapped, because if you haven't taken out the Divine Beast, then odds are your character's low on stats and equipment, but if you've taken them out, then you're probably decked, so it's strange to see that the final boss gets easier with the more equipped route than the lesser one. Anyways, after the Divine Beast attack Ganon, you fight his strange Calamity form, and eventually break him down enough to where he turns into his pure hatred and malice form. Gifted with the Bow of Light, you and your trusty steed finally take down the evil which has poisoned Hyrule for all of these years. The boss fight in the castle is pretty fun. It relies on a good knowledge of your arsenal and will take some skill to beat once you do so. And once you beat him, you're taken to the final phase, which... oh man, hooey! That is one hell of a boss right there. It'll be hard, but it's time to hero the wild it up. I've acquired skills which have gifted me the opportunity to vanquish the evil from the... You shoot him. You trot around and you shoot him. Again and again. He doesn't really do much. Yeah, the boss is a huge letdown, and while it looks just cinematic while playing and feels so epic, soon the aesthetic coating of that all wears off, and you're left with nothing but a lame game of whack-a-mole. When I first saw this guy pop up, I thought you'd have to use the 2 skills of gliding and climbing of the game to scale the beast and hit its weak points with the Master Sword, which would have been a fantastic payoff for the legendary blade, instead of just being given the Bow of Light from the last second out of nowhere. It still looks fantastic, but again, the potential here is just so deep, and with so little actually being executed, it just leaves a poor taste in my mouth when reflecting on it. After defeating the evil which has plagued Hyrule for so long, you end up walking off with Princess Zelda and have plans to rebuild Hyrule to and past its former glory, with the spirits of your old friends watching over you. It's a great ending story-wise, still somber yet hopeful, and gives you a great deal of closure. The Legend of Zelda is a series that I hold close to my heart. I've made that quite aware and a very well-known fact in this video, but it's just something I can't express enough. There's this weird connection I have to it, like my childhood and The Legend of Zelda are synonymous. It's like how kids view Disney, but it's how I viewed Zelda, and how I view it now is with a nostalgic eye always. And seeing a game like Breath of the Wild come into the slate with a brand new idea of how to take the series where in a new direction is uncharted waters, it's weird. It's weird because you're used to these things like, you know, loading screens for doors and pots that you pick up and throw, and, you know, linear design with these huge massive dungeons and not a huge overworld, or if there is, it's usually barren. But even through all that, Breath of the Wild is designed to be not only such a great game, but also to have that Zelda feel. It's unexplainable how it still remains feeling like Zelda, and almost more so than other titles. It feels exactly how you would hope it would. It feels like Zelda, and it feels like pure, unbridled nostalgia. I know it's really stupid to say, but take all that away. Take the nostalgia away, take the fact that it's named Zelda Breath of the Wild. The game was a fantastic journey, and I've logged an ungodly amount of hours into it, and I just think it's one of the best games I've ever played. It rivals Wind Waker for the #1 spot. It's so good. I love it so much. I know 15 years from now, I'll probably blabber on about it how I blabber about Ocarina of Time. It's definitely one of those watershed moments in gaming where it comes out and everyone unanimously looks at it and goes, wow. And it does have its issues. The lack of enemy variety and the Master Sword basically accomplished nothing in the game aside from a cool section of getting to it. And a few other issues and nitpicks, but you know, I still think it's a masterpiece for sure, and I think it's a fantastic game. And by the time I'm reviewing it now, the frame rate issues have been mostly fixed, and I just can't see too many errors with the game that sour my gameplay, maybe one or two, and that doesn't even really begin to contrast the huge amount of fun I had with this game and the adventures I went on. This game is just the game I've been thinking of ever since I was a kid. It's weird, it's hard to explain how I always wanted that open world Zelda game, and I got it, and it's better than I could have ever imagined. You know what I'm gonna say. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is amazing, and 10 out of 10. I think it's amazing, and I think anyone who liked Nintendo at one point in their lives, even if they don't anymore, or if they still like it, you need to pick this game up. And even if you've never played a Nintendo game before, I still say you should pick it up. I think this is the perfect gateway game into the Nintendo franchise's histories, I would say. And I feel like Breath of the Wild is just this special moment in gaming history. I wasn't too much aware of what was going on when Ocarina of Time released, but now I feel like I understand. Even though we're not jumping to a whole new dimension, we are jumping into a whole new era for Zelda, and that is exciting and fascinating at the same time. And while there were some growing pains in this game, I feel like Nintendo's gonna pick themselves up from this game and find a way to make it even better. Ah, man, it's really weird to play a game where you can relive so many nostalgic memories but create so many brand new, nothing to do with the nostalgia memories at all. And 10 years from now they'll be nostalgic. I just can't wait to replay Breath of the Wild in a few years and just already have that nostalgia attached. That's when you know the game is an instant classic, when you play it and can't wait to play it again in a few years. Anyways, have a fantastic year, everyone. I know I was a little absent in 2017, but be assured that 2018 I'll be back and hitting harder than ever. Have a great year, have a great New Year's, and I hope that you all have a great 2018. I hope that I will too. See you all then. Have a great day. Goodbye. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I greatly appreciate it, and I wanted to do what I do every year, what is apparently now a Christmas tradition at the Roy Boy Central Hub, is apologize for the lack of uploads. This year I was able to manage to get some out in the early bits of 2017, a lot out in Fire Emblem month. I think I did 5 or 6 videos in that one month, and then I spent a month getting ready for the next slew of Roy Reviews episodes with new assets and intro and I knew everything, and like writing scripts for multiple videos and stuff like that. Did the Minecraft review, and then I planned to do a bunch of different videos. A bunch of them didn't work out for multiple reasons, and eventually just got to the point where I ended up in December wondering what happened and ready to just get Breath of the Wild done as a review. And excited to do so, and I had a great time making the video, so I hope you had a great time watching. And I know I say this every year, but this time I actually have a way to accomplish this goal. I have means to do so, and I mean that Royboy 140 Royboy will not be absent as much as it was last year and next year. This 2018 will not be an absent year for me. I plan to just put everything I have into the channel, especially with just a culmination of things in my personal life. I feel that it's time for me to just put as much free time as I have into the channel, go back to how I used to do things, which is just making the channel something more in my life, because honestly that's what I was happiest when I was working on the channel, and it's something that I've been missing the last year. It definitely contributed to a lot of not great feelings this past year, that I wasn't as active on the channel. So I'm looking forward to giving you guys more videos this upcoming year. I also have scripts that have already been fully written for videos, so expect some stuff sometime soon, probably around January, mid-time in January. And I can't wait to hopefully grow the channel even more next year with you guys. And I just want to thank you all so much for sticking around this whole time. You guys are actually the best, and thank you so much. And I hope you did enjoy the video. That's what I aim to do. Have a great Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate. Have a great one, and just, enjoy your time for the next 2 weeks, and I hope that we all go into 2018 better and happier, and we can have a greater year than we just had this past year. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great one. Goodbye.